Hello everyone, welcome to the AITS technical webinar on Citect SCADA connectors. My name is Carla Girdi and I will be your host. Today's webinar will be presented by my colleague Janine Khuta, who will go through the different types of connection and integration. Before we start, let me just remind you to type all your questions in the question section or the chat box, and we will answer them at the end of the session. Now let's get started. Hi Janine.
Hi, Carla. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Fine, thank you. All right, guys. So thanks for joining this webinar. So let's start with today's agenda. Uh, so here we will be discussing different types of Citect connectors. The first one is the Citect SCADA connector to the system platform, AVEVA system platform here. The second one is the Citect SCADA connector to the AVEVA Historian and the AVEVA Insight cloud solution. Finally, we're going to be talking about the Citect Anywhere server. All right. So the the Citect system platform actually connector, you're going to see that it's going to be integrated as a service. And this service allows you to connect a Citect SCADA to an AVEVA system platform, allowing data from Citect runtime node to be exposed to the AVEVA operational applications. So when we deploy this service to an AVEVA system platform runtime node, it supports the following functionalities and the abilities to do browsing of the data. So first, it allows to browse data, tags, equipment items from Citect. And it also allows the reading and the writing of values to one or more tag. Okay, it's worth mentioning here. Let's highlight a little bit on the topology. You need basically to have actually three machines running on your network. The first machine should have the Orchestra IDE installed and running. The second machine is the Galaxy repository machine. Actually, you can combine them. The IDE and the GR machine, they can be combined on one machine. And the third machine is the runtime node where these services are going to run. Okay, so you have to choose a node where these data services are going to be running. Now concerning the second connector, which is the Historian Cloud connector. So this connector acts as a conduit between the Citect SCADA and, of course, the destination you choose, whether it's the on-premises AVEVA Historian or the cloud-based AVEVA Insight. This connector allows you to forward alarms, events, trends, data, and even it supports the forwarding of string data from Citect to the destination. It's worth also mentioning here that there's a feature, it supports a store and forward feature. So whenever the connection between the Citect SCADA client with the connector is shut down, or the connection between the historian is shut down, it's going to start to store the data locally on that Citect runtime machine. And then whenever the connection comes back online, it will automatically resume and forward the data to that particular either AVEVA Historian or AVEVA Insight. So this feature is really nice here to use the store and forward feature here with that part. The third part here we're going to talk about is the Citect Anywhere. Actually, here we are basically more concerned about the Citect Anywhere server, because you're going to see later on we have actually three types of components that we can install along with Citect Anywhere. So the Citect Anywhere server allows you to remotely access a running Citect client with mobile devices, including tablets, smartphones, even your laptops. All you need is just a web browser. So basically here, you are not obliged to, or there's no need to install any of Citect's SCADA components on the thin client machine. All right. So it's also worth mentioning here that uh, basically you're gonna be needing two types of licenses: the Citect Anywhere license and the actually two types of licenses, either the Citect client control license or the view only Citect client license, runtime license, of course. So, and these, of course, these licenses should be running on the runtime machine where the Citect data server is installed and the runtime is installed. So let's jump right into the demo here. So let's highlight quickly on the topology. So here I have actually three machines. The first machine is the GR platform where I have installed the IDE and the Galaxy repository. I have also a historian running here on that machine. The second machine, it has the Citect client, the runtime of the Citect, and the Citect Anywhere server. The third machine also has a Citect client up and running and the historian insight connector. Here in this demo, I'm going to demonstrate using the Plant SCADA 2020 R2 version, which is formerly called Citect. So now we're going to call it Plant SCADA from now on for Citect. So let's go into the GR platform here. So here I have installed the data services. In order to obtain the data services, you can check the support product website in order to download that connector to the system platform, and it will be downloaded like that as a zip file. So if you extract it, you're going to find a setup file here. Now, if you install it, it will be directly, these data services are going to be directly embedded in the IDE. So if you go to the IDE and then go to configure orchestra services, now your data installed data services is going to appear as orchestra, ASB, visual, Citect data service. So the first thing that we're going to do here is create an instance of that service. So let's right click on that service and create an instance. So this instance allow me to create a namespace where I'm going to store all of the tags and equipment items coming from Citect. And I'm going to configure the runtime node IP address here. All right. So the first thing that you want to do is go and check it out to be able to configure it. Then you specify the name of the namespace and the IP address and all of that. After that, which is really important, you have to assign um, a node where you will be deploying the services to run. So actually here I have the GR platform and I'm going to deploy the services to that node. And then you click on update. Whenever the operation is successful, now you are ready to check in the object and then deploy the object. So now whenever you deploy, the services are going to run on the GR platform. All right. I basically, whenever you finish deployment, you have to configure something called a post-deployment settings here that deals a little bit with the authentication present in Citect. So we're going to configure the post deployment settings here. So you have to type in the username and the password of the user created in your security configuration in the Citect Studio. So here actually I have already configured an instance and it's up and running. So here I'm not going to do anything else. So this one is running and deployed successfully. All right. So now what we're going to do next, now the service is running and everything is going fine. Now we're going to start to read those tags from the Citect. So I have created here a user-defined instance, and I have configured that user-defined instance to connect to that namespace and to be configured. So basically here, if you click on the ellipses button, and if you go to that namespace already created in your data service, you're going to find all those tags from Citect, which is actually here from cluster number 1. So after that, you deploy your that object, and let's go and check the what's happening in the object viewer. So in the object viewer, you see that here I have this object and it has a value. So let me go to the Citect SCADA runtime node here. So here I have a Citect client. This is the client actually I'm connected to. Actually, Citect is up and running. And now I'm going to demonstrate on the holding a tube temperature. So if you go back, it's now 72. So now if I change it to, let's say, for example, 18, you're going to go back and to the GR platform and see that the value is 18. Now you have the ability to write. So I'm going to change that, for example, to 35 and click OK. Now let me go back to that node here, okay, and see if it changed. So now it's 35. So you have actually uh, read write capabilities in here. Okay, so that's it for the system platform connector. Now, what we're going to be talking about next is the Citect Anywhere. So you can download the Citect Anywhere along with all its components from the software support website. Okay, whenever you download it, it's going to be downloaded as a Citect Anywhere. Here I have downloaded 1.2 version. And whenever you want to install, it's going to actually allow you to install up to 3 components. Here it's already installed, so I'm going to click modify just to show you. So here you have the ability to install the Citect Anywhere server, which allows you to access the Citect client via an HTML5 web browser. And the secure gateway also is another component that can be installed, which allows you to publicly access that Citect Anywhere server using the internet. So actually, you do not need any public IP address here. You just need to install the secure gateway. And it's more recommended to install the secure gateway on a different node than the Citect Anywhere server. The final component is the Citect Anywhere authentication servers, which allows you to embed authentications and security to the Citect Anywhere products. So these are the components that I have. You have the options to install, but for the time being, we're just going to install. I have here installed only the Citect Anywhere server. Okay. The second thing we're going to talk about is what are the requirements related to the operating system before working with the Citect Anywhere server. So first of all, you have to configure some of your network settings here. So if you go to the PC properties, you're going to go to remote settings and you have to allow remote connections to this computer. And not only that, you have to select particular users to be able to access that the Citect Anywhere server. So here I'm using a student as a user. This is really important before you start out. Now you are ready. After you install the Citect server anywhere, you are ready to use it. All right. So now let's go and check the server configuration options here. So first of all, you have the general tab here. You can check whether the Citect SCADA Anywhere server is up and running. You can check the available number of sessions. And here it's worth mentioning that the number of sessions are decided by your license. Here you can stop and start your server. You can check the performance to check how actually the data compression, the data, the number, the amount of data being received from to the host. And the most importantly is the Citect Anywhere port number, because actually this is the port number you're going to be using inside the URL that you type into the internet browser. You're going to use that port. You can change it based on your IT, based on your IT configurations, but this one should be excluded out from your firewall and from your antivirus restrictions. You can also go back to default if you want to by clicking on that button here. And most importantly is the logging part, where you can open the log folder to access the trace logs, the errors, the warnings, and all of that here in that part. So now, as you see that my Citect server is up and running, so now I will start connecting to that server. And you have to be careful that you have to have a Citect SCADA a runtime running by going, if you want to check, go to the runtime manager and make sure that a client is already running on that here. So now you see that here, you're going to say, okay, where's the machines? Where's the thin client in here? So basically, I'm going to use my GR platform as a thin client. So basically, on that machine, I have not installed any of Citect SCADA runtime components or anything. So I'm going to go and open the web browser to be able to access that Citect Anywhere server. All right. So what we're going to do is that type the URL, and URL has the following format: http the IP address of the Citect Anywhere, the port we already talked about. Then whenever you click on that, you have to enter the username and the password. Basically, here you specify here the domain, and here you put the here backslash the name actually that I have already configured in my remote network settings, as you remember. So here I'm going to put the password and click on connect. So now I am ready to connect to my Citect SCADA here runtime node. So I'm going to log in to show you the read-write capabilities. So I'm going to log in as a user already defined in the Citect SCADA security settings. So I'm going to click on OK. Just a sec. All right. So now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to check the read-write capabilities. So here I have, you see here, I have the holding temperature. It's set to 72. Now here on my runtime node, it's set to 72. Let me go back to the thin client and change it. Let me change it from, actually, I'm changing now from the web browser. So now it's like 21 or something. Now let me go back here. It's 21. So now you have seen that it supports read run capabilities there for the Citect Anywhere part. Okay, so that's it for the Citect Anywhere. And now let me close that environment because I'm not going to be needing it anymore. And let me close that web browser. Okay, I'm done with testing on that. And now the third node here, I have installed a Citect client and the Historian Insight connector. So this is what we're going to be talking about right now. So the first thing what I'm going to do first is that I'm going to connect to Historian, and then I'm going to connect to the AVEVA cloud. Okay, so now as I mentioned earlier, I have installed the AVEVA Historian on the GR platform. So I'm just going to make sure, go to the SMC and make sure that that Historian is up and running. All the licenses are working perfectly. So this is what I'm going to do here. So if you go to the status, my Historian is normal and it's running. Okay. So now it's time to configure the connector. So you can install your connector from the, you can download and install it from the software support website. So whenever you download it, it's going to look like that, Citect connector. If you unzip, it's very easy, so straightforward. Just double click on Citect connector and it will be installed for you in seconds. Whenever you're done with this part here, you just uh, you go and start setting up your connector. So go to the settings. Now I'm going to work on the first part here. You see now you can enter the IP address of the Citect node, runtime node. Here you see that it supports actually redundancy concerning the Citect client part. And you enter the username and the password configured in your security settings in Citect. Okay. Now the destination, you're going to enter the username, you're going to enter the IP address of the historian, the username and the password of the historian, depending on the type of authentication you're using, either Windows or SQL authentication. Here I'm using actually Windows. And now you save the information. So whenever you see that part, you're safe, that Citect is online and that the destination is online. So practically now, my historian is, you see, it's logging the data. So now let's go and check. So in order to check if the historian is logging the data, let me go back to the historian node and open the historian trend tool. You see that I have on the right side, I'm sorry, on the left side, I have all the tags from cluster number 1 from Citect. And you see that I have historized already some values, and I'm in live mode actually. So I'm watching now the valve, the cooling valve. So let me go back to the client node and let me open this Citect client, and let me, for example, turn this valve off, on. Here it's already closed. Let me turn it on. You see that it should be reflected back here, as you see. So now it's on. If you see my mouse pointing on that. So now you see that the data is coming uh, from the Citect SCADA and being logged to the historian. So now I'm safe here. Now let's go and check how can we connect to the AVEVA Insight. All right. So let me go back to the connector node, okay, and go to the connector, and then go to the settings, and then instead of selecting the historian on premises, I'm going to select the Insight. So the first thing you're going to do is confirm, click on yes, then you're going to register your Citect SCADA license. Then I'm going to register it. Of course, you have to have a valid license up and running there. And then I'm going to log in and publish the data into my AVEVA Insight account. Now, if you do not have an account, you can create a new account here. Now I have already an existing account on AVEVA Cloud. And then here, then enter your here your email and password. All right, let me do that quickly. Okay, then sign in to the AVEVA cloud, and now whenever it connects, it will allow you to publish your data into a solution. So here you have to have created a solution. So here I have created this Citect solution, and I have actually created some data sources. I have created webinar test 1, test 2. So here I'm going to create test 3, and I'm going to publish that. So whenever you publish, now the data is being sent to your cloud account here. All right. So whenever you see that check, you're going to make sure that the connection to Insight has been registered. All right. And then click on save. Now you want to restart the connection. So now the Citect is online and the Insight connection, both they're online. Now, in order to check your data if it's being logged or not, you have to go to the AVEVA cloud here. AVEVA Insight. Let me check that one. Go to, I think it's AVEVA Online. Yes. So go to AVEVA Insight, sign in to your account. Whenever you sign in, you should be able to see your data. So now I will log into the solution that I have already created. All right. Then go to your home here and type down in, for example, test. So here I think test 3 has not been yet published. It could require some time, but you see here that test 1 and test 2, they have already registered all the data for my here, all my data for my project here. Okay. So basically that's it for this demo. Let me go and check again. Test 3. All right. Anyways, so it could require some time, but as you have seen earlier, that I have created 3 sources actually, and they exist here. So it could require slightly some time to upload your data. All right, so that's it. Thank you very much for listening. So let's go back to Carla.
Thank you, Janine. Thank you for this informative session.
Thank you, Carla.
We will be waiting for the questions to come in. Meanwhile, for all of you who are asking about today's webinar, it is recorded and we will send it to your email addresses as well. And it will also be uploaded on all AITS social media platforms. So don't forget to follow us. I shared with you the links on the chat box. All right, let me start reading the questions. Janine, we have a question. What is the best topology when installing Citect Runtime, AVEVA Historian, and the connector?
Oh, very good question there, Carla. Well, to talk about the topology when dealing with the connector and what's the best topology, the first thing is that it is recommended to install the connector on a different node than the AVEVA Historian. Okay, but you can install the connector along with the Citect SCADA runtime on the same node. So the best solution is just isolate your historian node. That's the best solution. I hope this answered your question there.
Yes, yeah, it does. All right. Second question we received. Can Citect Anywhere server be installed on a separate node?
No, it should be actually installed on the same machine as the runtime node. So both of them should be installed on the runtime node. The runtime, the client, the Citect client, and the Citect Anywhere server should be installed on the same node.
All right. Okay. Another question. Can we store data to both Insight and Historian at the same time?
Actually, that's a good question. You see, let me go back to the connector to show you something. So basically, if you go back to the settings here, you have Historian on premises and cloud. So it's like a radio button here. So it's either of them. But if you want to store on both, actually, you need to first store on Historian on premises and make a workaround by configuring the Historian server to replicate the data into Insight. So in that way, all of the data that you're storing to Historian, they're being replicated to the AVEVA cloud. So this is like a workaround. But using the connector, like choose both options, it's not valid here in the connector as you see it. I hope this answered your question.
All right. Okay. We received a question from Mustafa. In case of Citect Anywhere, we shall purchase 2 licenses, one for control client and Anywhere license. I think this is more of a sales question, Janine. I'm not sure if you can help in it, but
Actually, I
yeah,
can.
all
I
right.
can help him out. So basically, let me show you something here. So basically, on that node, the Citect Anywhere server node and the runtime node of my Citect, if I open the floating license manager, actually, I have installed two licenses. I have installed a Citect Anywhere license, and now the session is up to 5 users. And the also I have installed, activated another license, which is a plant SCADA control client. Now you can either use a control client or a view only client, but the view only client does not have the capabilities to write the data. It's just for monitoring your data. So I hope this view like answered your question.
Okay, Mustafa, if it's not clear, you can ask us another question. He is also asking, what is the rate of data transfer from Citec to Insight?
From Citect to Insight, you mean
Yes,
the you mean the speed? That's what he means. Well, I think this also depends on your license, I guess, but uh,
I think we covered this
I'm
topic
not
in
I'm
our
not
previous.
sure.
Yeah,
Maybe if he can send me an email with that, I can check it out for him and answer him back for that one.
sure, sure. We'll
Yeah.
contact you, Mustafa. But if I'm not mistaken, we have mentioned this topic in another webinar, Architecting from Edge to Enterprise, with our colleague Tamim. So, Mustafa, I can also share with you this link for the webinar recording. All right. I think we covered all the questions. If you have more questions, you can always send them to support@aitsmina.com. Finally, I'd like to thank you, Janine, and to thank
Thank you,
everyone for
Carla.
attending this
Thank you,
webinar. We
Carla.
hope welcome. We hope that this session was informative and helpful for everyone. That's it for today. We hope to see you in our future webinars.